of the heart flows the issues of life. And many of these issues stem from one's emotional, mental, and spiritual condition. Such issues may oppress, stifle, and even stagnate one from living a healthy and fulfilling life. So how does one progress past such issues and achieve a state of emotional, mental, and spiritual healing? There's help, so open your heart and prepare your mind. It's time for healing to take place in your life. You're in tuned to Talking with Dr. Toy, a holistic approach to emotional healing. And now, your host, licensed professional counselor, Dr. Toy Lisa Mitchell.
It's just me and you. I feel so lost, 'cause I don't know what to do.
Well, good Sunday morning. It's so good to be with you. I want to welcome you to the broadcast. So grateful that you're here. I am Dr. Toy, and listen, you are in tune to Talking with Dr. Toy. My purpose is to provide a holistic approach to emotional healing. Therefore, my mission to provide a holistic, restorative, therapeutic approach in addressing and resolving issues that adversely affect the emotional, psychological, spiritual, and physical well-being of individuals who desire to enhance their quality of life. I always want to just really start out with a self-care check. How are you, and what are you doing for self-care? Yes. What did you do for self-care this week? Again, I'm encouraging you, doesn't have to be huge, just small, minute things to help protect your overall well-being and your health. Remember what the definition states: the practice of taking an active role in protecting your own well-being and happiness. And I would just add to that as well, protecting your peace. Yes, I've been hearing that from individuals in this early part of the year. I just want to protect my peace. And that's a form of self-care. And how do you do that? That's the question. What action steps do you put in place to protect your peace and to cultivate aspects of joy, restoration, revitalization in your life? Remember, it's the practice. So we've got to put some things into practice. I love this. Love this. This is not my quote, but it was a quote that I received by being in tune with a broadcast. And this person said so beautifully and profoundly, "My peace is non-negotiable." I'm telling you, I've kept that as my mantra. I have adopted that my peace is non-negotiable. And so basically what that entails is that you are aware and willing to take actions if there are things, people, places that may be sifting your peace. Yes, I'm telling you, that is a practice of self-care. Now, there are going to be situations where we give of ourselves, right? However, you want to make sure that God is leading and directing you into those paths, because if you're going in there on your own strength, then probably what may happen is that the enemy can definitely use that as a tool to steal and take away your peace. We know that that's what the enemy does, to steal, kill, and destroy. So one of the things that you may want to do is really connect with what brings me peace and cultivate more of that in your life. That's an aspect of self-care as well, especially given the environment, the political environment that we're in right now. I'm telling you, it seems like it's a daily barrage of things that seek to steal our peace and our joy. And so being proactive in ways that you cultivate that and protect your peace and what you anchor in, that's going to be the key. We're going to talk a little bit about that today as we are in Black History Month. And so if we've never needed to celebrate Black history, we sure do need to do it now. And so I'm going to highlight and really put forth some things to hopefully for us to meditate on, for us to think about as we honor the history of Black Americans, as our Black people. Let's just say that we are going to take time to do that today and for the rest of this month, because it's so very important that we continue to stay connected to our history, right? To the history, so that we don't have revisionists who are seeking to change history according to their likes and their desires. But we know that the Word of God tells us that the truth shall make us free. So trying to revise something that is not truthful, that is dishonest, it will bring bondage to everyone. Because we know that the Bible says, who's the father of lies? The enemy. So part of what takes place is us knowing our history, because knowing who you are, and I love this, and knowing whose you are, that will help to anchor you in times like these. And we sure do need that right now. And so that aspect of self-care, protecting your peace, and then community care. Yes, love this. And this really coincides with Black History Month as well. And it is defined as this: people committed to leveraging their privilege to be there for one another in various ways. Yes, we're going to get into this today, because it took the civil rights movement rooted in community care, people sacrificing their lives, people sacrificing their livelihoods, people sacrificing their dignity and quality of life for a dream and for a vision that they knew to some degree may not come to pass in their lifetime. But they were setting up the alley-oop for us to come, those that would be partakers of that. And so I love that passage of scripture in Hebrews where it says that for the joy set before him, Christ endured the pain of the cross. And so what some scholars suggest that is that the joy set before him, some scholars suggest that was us. Jesus saw a people in need of healing, salvation, and deliverance. And so the joy of us being able, the people being able to take part and receive salvation and healing, that joy for someone else, again, self-sacrifice. That's some of the reason why he endured the shame, the pain of the cross for us, for someone else. So that concept of community care becomes so much more evident in this space that we're living in today. Again, how I frame this: how did you show up for others, and how did you allow others to show up for you? So very important. Again, how do we show up for others? And we'll talk about ways in which the men and women showed up for us, even though they didn't know who we were. We weren't even in existence yet, but they showed up, right? Sacrificed. And then I love the second question: how did you allow others to show up for you? We've talked about that before, but leaning in to your support systems, because I'm going to be honest, there is a difference between solitude and isolation. Right? There's a difference. We need to cultivate solitude in our lives, quiet time to just quiet the noise, and for us to connect in relationship with God and also with ourselves. However, isolation, sometimes what that does is that isolation can get us cornered off into spaces where we begin to think about, well, there's no one here for me. There's no one that embraces me. There's no one here for me. And when we get into those places, it's like that's a good place for the enemy to just barrage you with lies, right? And so be mindful of being able to know the difference between, am I isolating or am I cultivating solitude? All right. Because sometimes when we isolate, we don't lean into our support. We negate that support. And that can be a vulnerable position and definitely a weakened position. So here's what I want to talk about today. And we may continue with this next week, but this is what I want to talk about today. This has kind of been stirring in my soul, and I wanted to bring this forth. I want to talk about the power. I want to talk about the power of resistance. I want to talk about the power of resistance in honoring Black History Month. Part of this process comes with what we're experiencing in this world today. How in some ways we're experiencing attack against the other. If you are not of a certain color or hue, then it brings about these things of dehumanizing you, seeing you as object, right? And how these stereotypes in some ways are so damaging, so very damaging, that we internalize them, and then we begin to internalize and accept these stereotypical things in our psyche. It reminds me, it reminds me of the study that was done, the doll study, and I've talked about that in a previous podcast. I think it was 2 years ago. I talked about that when we were talking about psychology and basically in some ways the Black history of psychology. And I was talking to this particular study that was done by Kenneth and Mamie Clark, the doll study, where they took a doll, and you can still find this video online. There's a video online of it where basically what they did, they presented children with a white doll and a black doll, and they presented Black children with these dolls, and they in essence asked them the question, which one looks more like you? Which one looks more like you? Right? And these are children. And some children pointed to the white doll. In essence, the white doll became something that they wanted to be, and internalized in some ways that the white doll, and they asked them several questions, which one is good and all of this, and the white doll was the one that was good, right? The white doll was the one that was good, and the black doll, in many, was bad. And then I remember this moment in the video when the person that was asking the question, the researcher was asking the question, asked this little black girl, which one looks more like you? And the little black girl sheepishly, shamefully pointed to the black doll. No sense of pride, no sense of goodness, but it was almost, I'm that one. Do you know what that does to our psyche? These stereotypes and all of these things with regards to people of color, that it equates with with bad, and all of this is rooted in white supremacy? Do you know what that does to the self-image of a child and growing up in that space? That at an early age, a child sees herself as less than, sees herself as bad just because the hue and the melanin in her skin. This is a space of tearing down the psyche of those who are also created in the image of God. And there's nothing inherently good about that. That is evil. And that is what an enemy devises to do, to steal aspects of your authentic and true identity, to destroy your sense of personhood and humanity. And so today, we're going to talk about the power of resistance, because it was the power of resistance that really strengthened our arms, strengthened our legs and our minds and our hearts to not accept the status quo. In essence, to not accept and embrace the demonic lies that because you are of a different melanin and hue, that you somehow are not valuable, that you somehow are less than, that you somehow are not enough. As the preachers would say, that is a lie from the pit of hell. And if we don't invest in learning and really cultivating aspects of our history, we're subject to believe and operate in the lie. Our hair, our skin, our frame, in many cases has been mocked, has been demonized. Yeah, it has been. And even in the early years of psychology, go back and listen to that series, right? And so, but yet and still, there is this aspect of mocking it, hating it, right? But also trying to adopt it and co-opt it. And so there is something insidious here. And if we don't connect and learn about aspects of our history, we will fall for the okie doke. We will fall for it. And so one of the means by which we are able to stand and to cultivate this aspect of our true identity and who we are and the DNA that resides within us is to know our history and to process the power of resistance. I love this. This basic definition of resistance, it says this resistance is the refusal, come on, the refusal to accept or comply with something. The ability to withstand an adverse force or an imposing action. It refers to the efforts to stop or fight something socially and physically. Listen, I love this part. The refusal to accept or comply with something. The attempt to prevent something by action or argument. That's loaded, and that is packed with meaning. And part of this aspect of resistance is rooted in is rooted in morality. What is morally just and what is morally right. You know, when we talk about, and I'm going to talk about civil disobedience as well. But when we talk about resistance, there are some in our culture that will seek to demonize this, right? You need to go along to get along and all this. And listen, part of living in this world is that, yes, we have to comply with equitable laws of the land. So not saying that we don't. But the things that I just mentioned to you with regards to these stereotypes of diminishing people's value and self-worth and their identity based on the melanin of their skin, no, we resist that. We refuse to accept that the standards of beauty, the standards of acceptance solely reside in European Americans. We refuse to believe that our skin color is ugly, is not acceptable. No. Defective. No. That is something, as we talked about before, that is something from the pit of hell. And if we do not, and let me say this, there are forces, let's be real, there are forces that seek to sow that kind of lie and disruption into the lives of people of color. There are forces that seek to do that. And so part of this process is that if we are not aware of these things, we may be subject to the insidious nature of what's being communicated about us, what's being said about us, how we are being portrayed in the media and all of this, where we latch on to those stereotypical notions because, let me say this, it is easy to give way to a stereotype. It is easy to do that. It is easy to roll on that wave of, well, this is who they are, this is how they are, and build a philosophy, build a way of thinking around a stereotype. It's easy to do that because that's what's presented on the tray. But if we ever go beyond what is presented to us and dig for ourselves, which takes what? Intentionality and time, then what we begin to uncover is that something is awry here. Something is not right here. There's something that's missing here. No. But the only thing that can combat a lie is the truth. And let me say this, a lie is more readily available than the truth. Let me say that again. A lie is more readily available than the truth. We have to be proactive in learning the truth about who we are, our heritage. Because if we ever anchored in that truth of who we are, they know that once we know that truth, and once we are rooted and anchored in that truth, we will not receive a lie. And no longer can we be lied to. Let me say, that is an act of resistance, refusal, or to accept something that you know is morally corrupt. That is resistance. And having the ability to stand in that. I love this when we talk about resistance. I love it when it says that it's not only standing against something. Yeah, I love this. Ultimately, the power of resistance is not just about stopping something, but about fostering a different kind of strength, wisdom, and potential for a different future. Yes, that is what we're talking about when we talk about resistance, not just stopping something, not just a refusal to accept something, but also it includes fostering, and this is the definition, not mine, but I love it, fostering a different kind of strength, wisdom, and potential for a different future. You know, when I think about that, fostering a wisdom and also fostering strength and potential for a different future, I go back to that video of that little black girl who, when asked the question, which doll represents you? Which doll most represents you? And then she in so, oh my God, it was heartbreaking, just said this one in such a way that she was ashamed that doll represented her. That's the future. That's the future that we are seeking to cultivate in a different future for that young girl, a different future where she doesn't have to hang her head low because she's of a different melon, that she's because she's of a different hue, that she doesn't have to hang her head low. That's what brings to mind, you know, when when James Brown said, say it loud, I am black and I am proud. That is what we want to cultivate in our children. That is the future. But one of the ways that the bedrock, one of the ways that we do that is through resistance. Is by resistance. And so I do want to really maybe take that word back, because in some circles, resistance has been deemed as negative. But let me say this, resistance has been a lifeline, especially in the history of Black Americans. It has been a lifeline that we have held to, that we've had to come up to in order to be deemed human. Yeah. In order to be deemed human, because you do know that we were deemed as property. The blood that flows through our veins, the wisdom and the knowledge that our God has given us, and even this creation in his own image, we were viewed as property. And listen, not even in our full humanity, right? So that is not biblical. That to see a human race and it created in the image of God as less than human, as less than a man, that's biblical? No, sir. The resistance says, no, I refuse to accept and comply with that. And that is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the power of resistance. And even though we're going to talk about the power of resistance, we're also going to talk about the healing power of resistance as we honor the Black history in this nation. So come along with me for this ride. It's going to be one that I hope will be something that will be said, something that will be done, that will inspire hope. Because I'm going to be honest too, that's a part of resistance, right? The part of resistance is saying that there's got to be a better way, that there's something better here than what I'm being presented with. And so I refuse to accept the status quo. There's a hope for something better. And that power of resistance leads us down a path of liberation instead of oppression. So we're going to come with it this month. Hey, come along for the ride. Well, listen, that's all the time that I have for today. Remember what I always say, relentlessly and intentionally pursue authentic and genuine relationships vertically with God, horizontally with others, and inwardly with yourself. Maintain and sustain a keen sense of awareness and ongoing discovery about self as well as others. Take good care of you and engage in things that are helpful for your mind, body, soul, and spirit. And remember, out of the heart flows the issues of life. Let's continue to talk about it and continue our journey towards emotional healing. Until next time, bye-bye.
So I need to talk.
You've been in tuned to Talking with Dr. Toy, providing a holistic approach to emotional healing with your host, licensed professional counselor, Dr. Toy Lisa Mitchell. Please connect with me at talkingwithdrtoy.com or Facebook at Talking with Dr. Toy or email talkingwithdrtoy@gmail.com. I would love to hear your story and hear your heart regarding the issues of life you may be experiencing. Remember, out of the heart flows the issues of life. Let's continue to talk about it. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for listening, and please join me next week for Talking with Dr. Toy.